Erin, thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody to our WHAM event. You've probably seen flyers about women's history and more, and this semester due to COVID, we have shifted a little bit. And rather than bringing in speakers that just focuses on a book or focuses on a movie, we thought we would be a little bit more student focused. So as we were brainstorming ideas for this academic year and for this semester for women's history, we figured it would be a good idea to maybe ask questions to faculty and staff members at and administrators at Bakersfield College to help us understand what's going on in this time of COVID. So if you've looked at the panel title, you'll see it's a candid conversation about online education in the age of COVID-19. As many of you know, we had to shift at Bakersfield College and make a lot of our courses online learning or Zoom required, and some hybrid courses. And there's probably a bunch of other lists that I forgot, right, at BC. But I think in the end, it was always the intent of the campus to make sure that we're offering the best quality education towards our students at Bakersfield College. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. And then after I do their introduction, each of them will have 3 to 5 minutes. And what they're going to do is they're going to talk about themselves. And then they're going to also talk about like how COVID has affected them. And then after everybody's given their small introduction, we're going to go ahead and move on to some questions for our panelists. Professor Aaron Miller sent out a survey to some students, and we have actually gotten some questions from students to ask our panelists. And before I move on, because you know, it's great being in the moderator. If you do have questions, on the bottom of your Zoom link, you should see a question and answer area. You can go ahead and type a question in that area, and I will ask the question to the panelists. And also, if you can stay muted, and if you do have a question and you want to speak, I just type it in the question and answer, because I'm the only one that can unmute people except for the panelists. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So our first panelist is Professor Matt Androsny Jones, and I told you I was going to mess it up. Is a faculty in the Academic Technology Department and a doctoral candidate at Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education and Psychology. And our next panelist is Professor Esmeralda Menchaca, Professor of Education. She was born and raised in Bakersfield, California, proudly in East Bakersfield High School Blade, where she was a student in distant learning courses. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Symbolic Systems from Stanford University, Master's of Arts in Education from Point Loma Nazarene University, and her Doctorate of Education in Organizational Leadership at the University of La Verne. She has over 14 years of teaching experience in Kern County, including in grades 6 through 12, and in several subjects, including math, science, and computer literacy. She currently teaches as a full-time tenured professor in the Education Department at Bakersfield College and a part-time lecturer in Liberal Studies at California State University, Bakersfield. Professor Menchaca has been teaching in distant education modalities for over 4 years. And like I was saying earlier, she's awesome. Dr. Nikki Domani is the Director of Student Life. And you might recognize Dr. Damania because he is always on the news and always on Facebook Live and always all over Bakersfield. And then our student representative is Emma McNellis. She's the Vice President of the Student Government Association. Her major is philosophy, and she is graduating in spring 2001. Yay! And she is waiting on transfer acceptance applications. And I said acceptance, Emma, because we know we're waiting. So we just pick what school we want to go with. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start with Matt Jones.
Hello, everyone. As was stated, I'm Matt Andrasian Jones, and I am a professor in the Academic Technology Department at Bakersfield College. I also teach an English B2, which is a Harry Potter themed course. And I also teach in some of the education B30 level courses in the education department. Most of my role on Bakersfield College campus is devoted to several things. One is that I spend a significant amount of time helping faculty diagnose and resolve issues that they encounter with Canvas and with other types of technology that they're trying to use on campus and in their classrooms. There's also some level of participation that I take part in higher in sort of like campus level initiatives. And then I would say that probably the largest part of it is that I spend time working with faculty to help them learn how to leverage technology to engage their learners in their classrooms. That's probably the bulk of what I do. Now, COVID-19 has kind of had a couple impacts, significant impacts on my life. In my department, I would say that one of the biggest things that it did is it brought what my department does to the forefront. We used to have people that came looking to us for specific things, but I don't feel like we were as widely known as we are as a result of COVID, because once that happened, part of what we were charged with is helping faculty move their face-to-face practices in their classroom to an online environment, which is what we study and what we specialize in. Now, on a bit of a personal level, I would say that I think the biggest impact it had on me was showing me the significance of context, and really having to manage myself. I didn't realize that, my traditional routine of getting up and leaving my house to go to the gym, and then from the gym to work, how those things sort of changed how I thought about approaching my day and scheduling my day. But as soon as, everything went to online and I'm just sitting at the house the whole, and I'm at my house the whole day, I sort of had to force myself to do that and become more regimented in my own day-to-day life. So I think that's sort of my introduction.
Thank you, Matt. We'll move on to Dr. Damania.
Great. Hello, everyone. Nikki Domani. I'm the Director of Student Life at Bakersfield College, and this is Skits. He's my office mascot right now. He's a little camera shy, I'll tell you that. So here on campus, I've been here since August of 2014. Our role within Student Life has expanded drastically. So some of the areas that I oversee currently is our student life, our student activities, student organizations. I advise our student government, our pantry program, student leadership programs, and I am also the institutional's conduct officer. So if by any chance you have violated one of our 28 codes of conduct, you come see my pretty face and we have a conversation of what happens next. Also, I oversee our Veterans Center and all the programs and services through that department. I also oversee our Student Health and Wellness Center, which is currently running the vaccine clinics. And then I also oversee our scheduling and events program here on campus, any events that happen on campus. I oversee that department as well. So in that way, as Professor Mendoza had mentioned, I am always on Facebook trying to engage with the students one way or the other. Just putting out a little selfish plug out there for our student government. We are in the elections mist, and I would love to get some very active students on our student government this year, including our student trustee on the Board of Trustees. So if you're interested in any of that and being more involved, or hey, you just want to be involved on events or campus life or anything, hit me up and we'll get you going.
Thank you, Dr. Damania. And next we'll go ahead with our student, Emma McNellis.
All right, hello everyone. Like she said, my name is Emma McNellis and I'm the Vice President for the Bakersfield College Student Government Association. We are the official student voice, or we are recognized as the official student voice of the BC students. I chair the Student Senate meetings, which we have every 2 weeks on Wednesday at 4. You are all invited, where we discuss how to best serve the students at BC. And we also represent the student voice on several faculty committees as well. And in regards to the shift to online learning, I can definitely say, I'm a student myself. It's definitely been difficult. I can directly attest to the fact that this transition has not been easy for any students that I have talked to about it either. Having to juggle being at home with my family and at school at the same time is confusing and it's difficult. Especially at my mom's house, and my dad's, we tend to have like my mom's on Zoom with her 5th grade class, or my dad is teaching, and then my sister's at school, and then I'm at school, and then the Wi-Fi crashes and we're all yelling at each other. And then, time management is also difficult. It's hard to miss a quiz when you have to go to class to take the quiz. It's hard to miss that, but when you have to get online at a certain time to take a quiz, it's really easy to miss those. I know I've had that happen quite a few times. I'm also a philosophy major, like Miss Mendoza mentioned, and philosophy classes are made for having discussions, and it's been hard to have those discussions in an online format, but I would like to commend a lot of my professors for really bringing the kind of life that a lot of those classes have. They keep that life going even on an online format, and I know it hasn't been easy. And I know it's even harder for a lot of the students taking like science and lab classes. I know that's extraordinarily difficult. But yeah, that's me, and I'm really looking forward to answering any questions that I can.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, last but not least, Professor Menchaca.
Hello, so I'm Erica Menchaca. I'm faculty in the education department. I've also taught a few courses in business management and information technology department. And so when we shifted over, I was teaching classes in 3 different departments and multiple modalities, trying to figure out how to get them into a fully online format. So that was fun and challenging. But I've taught online classes before, and so I at least had a little bit of background knowledge of, okay, I can do these different discussions, these different things. And I've gone to Matt's workshops, and so I've learned so much from academic technology and all of that. I was one of those few faculty that took advantage of what was available. But what I noticed when I was working with my other faculty is helping them be creative. And just when I got home, it was like, oh, the internet. I had reliable internet at BC and now I don't. And so trying to connect with students. And I think those are some of the struggles that come to mind. And I had to buy a new laptop over the summer because mine like overheated during the summer because, Bakersfield gets so hot. So that was fun to like have it crash right in the middle of the class. So just some stories I'm sure most of you could relate to as we try and figure out this remote learning situation.
Okay, so I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Professor Menchaca, and thank all the panelists for being here and taking time out of your evening, right? I was going to say day, but now it's the end of the day, out of your evening to come and answer questions for students. So any students that are here, I do recommend, if you want questions from these people from campus, which I think you have a meeting of various facets from the campus that can answer a question for you, I would recommend typing them in the Q&A area and we'll get to them. But I'm going to go ahead and start off with one of the questions that we had from our students. So students are asking a lot of questions. And the first one I had was, and anybody can answer it, when will in-person class resume and when will the campus open fully? So those are 2 questions, if anybody knows those answers. Okay, Nikki.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Remember, we're still under the tiers under the guidance of CDC and our governor. So we have to be within the frame of that. So just making sure that it's not Bakersfield College making that decision. It's an informed decision to keep our community safe. In that way, Bakersfield College has always kept our on-campus classes open for essential courses like nursing, RadTech, EMT, for that. We have now started opening it up more for our athletics and kinesiologies and our fine arts and music. Some of those classes are starting. We're opening more and more courses as we get closer to the summer. Our hope is to open up more summer courses and then even more in the fall. We did a survey across the campus on students who are looking at that information while we proceed forward. But of course, anything, like everything, it's like live theater, right? I may say this now, but then, in 2 weeks, it might be something completely different. But right now, we're looking at opening more and more courses by fall of 2021.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Damania. Another question, and maybe Matt or Erica can answer it, is will grades be curved this semester?
So who's going to unmute first? So grading's different for all faculty. I think there isn't a standard approach right now. It's not like the faculty haven't decided on one way to grade. And so there's what's called academic freedom in certain areas. And so then there could be different grading for different things. I can speak personally for my grading. I am keeping the same kind of standards and rigor of the course, but what I am doing is being more graceful on terms of like due dates, because I understand like I think Emma was mentioning, you forget a quiz or, things like that. It's hard to time manage and things. So that's kind of where we're at right with that. And I think also maybe allowing retakes or like considering extensions and extenuating circumstances. Matt?
And I would say just to sort of piggyback on what Erica would say, I would say in my own classes, as a faculty, I'm just working to be flexible with students. But what I encourage is that, if you are concerned, if you are having problems, approach your faculty, make them aware of it. I know that in most of the workshops we offer and the trainings that we offer to faculty, one thing we encourage is flexibility with students during this time. So if you have concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to your professor.
Thank you. I think those are excellent suggestions. And how Erica mentioned about academic freedom, each faculty member does choose their grading for their courses. And I think Matt gave some really great advice in reaching out to the faculty. The sooner the better, rather than waiting until the last minute. I would highly encourage reaching out to faculty, or even maybe using some of the resources at BC to help you get along if you're needing assistance. I know Dr. Domani is always posting on Facebook regarding the Writing Center and the Tutoring Center and so forth. So reach out to those resources or reach out to your faculty. I think that's great advice. The next question I have is, what is BC doing to improve and develop further the help that we currently offer at BC? So like, are we developing new strategies in any of the sources or resources that we're using currently online? Do you know, Dr. Domani, if we're developing new ideas?
I didn't want to be the first speaker all the time, but we do have quite a few online resources. One of our big study tools that we have is called NetTutor. That's a 24-hour, 7 days a week kind of tutoring assistance in various different subjects and topics. So it is within your Canvas shell. So you can go there, and on the left nav, there should be, say, Net Tutors, and then you can find out what days and times are there for any specific topics. We also have our Writing Center is completely online. Our own personal BC Tutoring Center is also fabulous and online and ready to roll with you as well. You can request a tutor, so you don't have to just jump in to a Zoom and wait. You can plan it out. The better you plan out, probably the better chances of yourself getting any of the tutors at any of them would be there. Also, I always encourage our students, don't forget group study is very important. So we have a mechanism where you could request a weekly Zoom link from us. And you can share that with your classmates. You can, in some of the Canvas portals, you can email all your classmates and say, hey, every Thursdays at 4 to 6, I will be in this Zoom room if you'd like to come and chat and work through some parties. I've had some students that have asked their faculty member to be like, hey, we're going to be in this Zoom room if you can join us. And some faculty member have been nice enough to join in for a couple minutes here and there. So be creative in your way to talk. I'm not saying that you need to go to Starbucks and gather up with each other. You could do it in the comfort and safety of your own house, but it gives you another opportunity. We do have a loaner program for Chromebooks. If you don't have a Chromebook or anything, unfortunately, currently we don't have Wi-Fi hotspots to give out, but our student-free parking lot is available, and we've expanded our campus Wi-Fi to be used in there, so you can plop yourself in the parking lot and use the Wi-Fi there. Some other resources, our pantry is still 24, working all the time, not 24/7, but you can request it a day in advance and get lots of resources that way. Our Student Health and Wellness Center has completely gone virtual. So you can request everything, but if you need a flu shot, you actually have to come in and get it, or a vaccine shot in general. And then our other really big resource is our Student Information Desk. That's our catch-all. So if you have any questions or anything, just come to the Student Health and Student Information Desk, the Zoom page, and they will connect you one way or the other.
And I'd like to add one other resource onto it, which is the Renegade Hub. And that is basically, it's managed by student workers. And what you can, if you're having difficulty with the online process, or if you're having difficulty with Canvas, you can come to them and they will help you resolve those issues. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna post it out in the chat. I've given you the webpage link to more information about it. And I've also provided you with the email and also a phone number that you can text your issues to. But one thing that I'd like to draw your attention to about the Renegade Hub is that it is offered Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and even on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So it's a very nice resource that is available to you, for quite a few hours within each week.
And I'd like to add one more thing on that is we also have a Bakersfield College Discord server. For all my students out there, I'm sure you probably know what Discord is. And if you don't, I highly recommend you check it out because I know it's been really helpful for a lot of students. It kind of it's created a more virtual community that I know a lot of students really needed. And I know Dr. Damania mentioned study groups. We also have little voice channels where you can just hop in a voice channel with other students to study. We have a math voice channel. So if you have you're working on a math assignment and you want your other math students to hop on there, you can just message them on Discord and you can hop in the voice chat and be working on that in the Discord. So I also highly recommend you check that out. And I will actually get the link for that Discord to put it in the chat right now.
Emma, can you explain more what Discord is? I know you're gonna put it in the chat, but for people that don't understand what it is.
Yeah, sure. So Discord in a nutshell, it's I guess it's like an online, it's like, I wouldn't call it a social media page. It's more so just it was originally for gamers that it kind of creates you create a server and then on the server you join with your username and there's little I forgot what they're called, but there's little sections that you can go to, whether it's welcome and introduction. You can go to we have just a general chat for surviving Bakersfield College, and students just kind of chat with each other in that just normal text chat channel, that's what they're called. And then there's also the voice channels where you can join and you can talk with your voice, and you could also turn on your camera, you can share your screen. And so all those options are available on Discord within that single server. And so we have a Bakersfield College server where there's different channels and voice channels that you can join.
Thank you, because I had no idea when you said Discord, I thought you meant this cord, Okay, so as you can see, I'm very old. So let's go ahead and move on to another question. So another question we had were, what has been the biggest obstacle to transitioning to the online format? Whoever wants to unmute.
Okay. I think one of the biggest obstacles, Matt kind of already talked about it, was the transition into working from home and figuring out that home life, right, work balance and routine. I also didn't realize how much just driving to and from work helped, or walking around. I sit so much more now that I'm working from home, but before I'd walk between classes or between meetings. I'm not getting my 10,000 steps, and I don't think I've done it once at all this year, which is really sad. I think those have been kind of the biggest transition, is figuring out how to balance everything and not have everything bleed into each other. I'm sitting in my living room with my laptop with my puppies instead of having a home office, but you do what you can.
I'd say one of the things that was a huge challenge was just, when people have well-defined practices and delivering things in a face-to-face environment, and then trying to make everything that they deliver face-to-face, the activities, the assignments, move to online, I would say that that was a really big, ramp for us to cover. And I think that one thing that I saw during the time, and it's kind of interesting, one of the things that, I've studied and read about in the past was Rogers' diffusion of innovations. And that essentially talks about, people's acceptance of innovations and technology, in a society. And I thought it was very interesting to see pretty much all of that at play in a very short period of time, because you have some people that had already adopted a lot of the stuff that they needed to do. Then you had some that, adopted after that, but then you had some that were kind of like, okay, they saw this coming, so they embraced it. And then you had some that, according to the diffusion of innovations, are like the laggards, right? So they come in like once they're forced to do it, skeptical, very resistant to it. And so it was very interesting to find approaches, but then to also hear things about how people change their mindsets about how beneficial it had been, and how, wow, they didn't think they could do this, but now they could. But, just working with people on that and being understanding and flexible and trying to put yourself in the shoes of people as they encountered these difficult times was kind of a, I'd say that it was a good challenge that we embraced. Yeah.
Something that I can say was an obstacle. I know I already mentioned like time management and time management, and like Wi-Fi issues was obviously a big issue or obstacle. But another thing was motivation. I know a lot of students felt like a drop in motivation, especially when you're stuck in your house all day, like we've all experienced. But like a big thing for me and a lot of my friends, one of our big things was, going to Starbucks to study or hanging out at the BC library. We spend a lot of time there, but obviously that's not possible during this time. So that kind of motivating factor was lost. And so that's been really difficult to try to make up for that on your own.
No, I think those are great discussions and comments regarding what had to shift. And I think a lot of us had to do those shifts. And I'm happy that everybody made comments on it, because I think a lot of us feel that we're in like this silo, right? We're the only ones that had internet problems. We're the only ones who had to buy a new computer or something to that effect. And the whole thing, when Emma, you're talking about taking a quiz at a certain time, I think a lot of students are having to struggle with their time management, because I feel from my perspective is when a student has an online class, they think, oh, I could do all the work in one day. And I know for me, I can't do all the work in one day because I have to do all the readings, I have to do everything, and it's just physically not possible. But I think time management's really big. So the other question that we had is, will all face-to-face instructors be required to get the vaccine? And then also, will all students be required to get the vaccine before returning to campus?
I'm going to guess that's a me question. And we can't mandate anyone to getting the vaccine. We're highly encouraging individuals to look into the opportunity for getting the vaccine, even our staff and our students and student employees. We're providing them opportunities. Currently, the COVID schedule has opened up to the education tier, so it's a great time for our educators to be vaccinated, but we're not, at this time, as far as I know, we're not mandating any vaccinations.
Thank you. The next question I had was, what do you hope will be a lasting impact as a result of online education in the age of COVID-19?
I'll go ahead and kick that one off. So I think that a lot of people during this time are realizing certain things that work for them, certain things that don't, right? And there's a variety of things. Some people do really well working online and driving themselves and participating in discussion forums, maybe in some cases even more so than they contribute in a face-to-face classroom. Of course, other people contribute more in a face-to-face and have a different level of comfort there, or in hybrid settings and everything like that. But I think one thing that I hope that continues after this is that that appreciation for an individualized approach to learning, and people find ways to adapt their practices to be, more customized, more individualized for their students, and I hope that, through this process, students also learn a lot about how they learn, themselves.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have something to add too. Something that I found that was a really cool impact that came out of having everything be online this year was our ability to reach such a huge amount of people. I know, especially like from the student government realm, I sometimes chair a meeting once a month. I chair a meeting with the delegates, with students from the Central Valley. And the Central Valley is a very large area, and those meetings used to always be in person. And so we would have students from like Modesto College driving all the way to like Bakersfield College or vice versa. And that's like a 4.5-hour drive, which is a ridiculous amount of time to just go to a meeting and then have to drive all the way back. And so having had everything be online this year has actually been a positive for those situations, because they were able to just type in a meeting ID and then bam, they're in the meeting instead of having to drive 4.5 hours and then 4.5 hours back. And so I think just that ability to reach such a huge amount of people is a really cool way of using this online modality to our advantage. And I do really hope that we keep taking advantage of that side of it.
Erica, were you going to add to that? It looked like you unmuted.
Well, Emma already said it. Just like continue to like keep those things like meetings online. They're kind of nice. Or I think we had like faculty, the flex workshops were online, and we could just like jump in. It saves that transition time. And so, yeah, I hope some of the things that we can keep carrying over.
Yeah, the attendance at flex workshops for faculty during that time was 300%, like compared to, last spring.
Yeah. So flex workshops are like our professional development, where we learn skills or learn about different strategies to help our students, or what's new at school, policies that we should know about.
Okay, thank you. Great answers. I hope a lot of things, some things stay. And I know Matt asked the question about like, what do we hope are the lasting impacts? I think the connections that we made with people also last, because even though we're not talking to people, like what Emma's saying, we get to talk to people on Zoom, and we get to have conversations with people that we normally don't, because we're so busy in the real world, right? I find myself loving my children a little bit more because I'm around them every day, but then I don't love them so much because I'm around them every day. But I think it's a good connection, like thinking about what we've accomplished in the year. We've been home for a year now this month, but when else would you have had that time to spend with family? Yes, we're still working online, but you have this time to spend individually with people. And I think those deep connections are really important as we reflect back on it. Okay, the next question we have is, what resources are still available for students? And I know Dr. Domani touched on this, food pantry, bookstore, library. How do students access these resources? So is there a specific link they should be using?
There's no specific link that I'm aware of. It's just as if you are scoping the BC website for on-campus resources, you would scope it for the online resources as well. And once again, you can always email studentlife@bakersfieldcollege.edu, and we can, I help direct that email to wherever it needs to go for the student to get responded back. But more than anything, we like to gear students to the student information desk, because then you're actually talking with a live person and getting your answers done in live time.
Thank you. Okay, I had a couple of questions about mental health, and I wanted to go ahead and ask them, how has BC tried to help with mental health and dealing with school during COVID?
Yeah, I guess that would be me too. So that's the Student Health and Wellness Center. We have, as I said, we have transitioned fully online. So there's two branches of that. First is what we call as our Students of Concerns team. So they are MSW, Masters of Social Work interns that are either from Cal State Bakersfield or the University of Southern California that are working with me on this outbranching to students. Faculty can email me saying, hey, I got a student that has an issue. Students themselves be like, hey, I'm running in through some hiccups here. I need some help. And we connect them to one of my interns who then will engage with the student through conversations and trying to figure out how do we smooth the road for the student to an academic success. We also work on trying to get the student connected to any resources that they need on campus as well as off campus. And then that's just kind of like the social work kind of a component. If it's needed for a more in-depth, like mental health, behavioral issues, kind of like that, we have two full-time licensed mental health providers. And I also have 3 intern associate mental health providers. And between the 5 of them, they're pretty busy about making sure they're connected with their students. Students are allowed, each student pays a student health fee per semester. So that's what funds that program. And so you can use it you can have up to 6 mental health sessions a semester. And if you need more, we go through an approval process. And then all the health and wellness training and education that you may want. We have that through there as well. And currently everything is done virtually.
Thank you, Dr. Damania. And there was a follow-up question to that for the professors. It was, if I'm struggling with depression and I find it hard to do my assignments, how do I communicate that with my instructors effectively? So how would you suggest if a student is struggling in the course due to mental health or due to COVID, how do you suggest they approach you?
So I try to make myself as available as possible to students through messaging. I have a Google Voice because I don't have access to my office phone, but I know like some students still like to text and call, and so I have a Google Voice for them that I share. Another thing that I do is I have like an introduction survey asking if there's anything specific I need to know. So if it's an ongoing struggle that they have, and that's their opportunity to share that at the beginning. So that way we can like plan some ideas, or I can give them resources, direct them over to Nikki's office. And then I also try to do check-ins during the semester. I learned that from Matt about the workshops. And so just doing a check-in, course check-in with the students, giving them an opportunity, just like, hey, what's up? Are you doing okay in class? Anything I should know about? So I try to provide those opportunities for students so it's not as intimidating to approach us.
And I would just like to, back up what she says. Pretty much, Google Voice, I provide that for my students as well. It's a great way for them to get in touch with me. The check-ins, as she mentioned. And then another thing that I do is that, during office hours, oftentimes I think people get accustomed to being, in Zoom in a broad sense. So I do let them know that, they can always set up something like that with me independent of my office hours. And we can also do things where if they happen to need to talk to me and they hop into an office hour and they don't want anybody to hear, I can create a breakout room. The other students can wait in the main session while I work with the student one-on-one in a breakout room, and they can tell me what it is that they need, and then we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. I think some students are just struggling, trying to find a way to communicate with their professors. And I know just from personal experience, I know that I may not see myself as intimidating, but I guess just because we're in the front of the classroom or we're leading the class, we seem very intimidating. And I still struggle with how do I not look so intimidating. As you can see, I'm in my laundry room, so that's not intimidating at all. Emma, there was a question that I was going to ask you. Do you have any suggestions to BC students on how they can get more engaged with the campus during this online format? So what are some of your suggestions as being the SJVP?
Well, number one, probably the easiest one is the Discord server that I mentioned earlier. Lots of fun there. We have like video games sessions. We have like Netflix watch parties, study sessions. That's probably the easiest one. I'd also recommend even though we are online, we do still have a lot of clubs that are still active. I know the Pre-Law Club is, the Lupe Club, the AI Club, Computer Science Club, Engineering Club, Women in Science. There's a lot of clubs that are still active and meeting in a virtual environment. So you can also go to the BC website. There's student organizations under like student services. And if you look through those, there are a lot of clubs that are still active, and you can check those out. And I highly recommend those. Those are really fun and streamlined toward your own interests. So you'll be interested in what they're talking about. And then also probably one of my favorites is join BCSGA. I know Dr. D talked about it earlier, but our elections are open now. You can be a senator, which is a fully volunteer job. It's only like you're required like 2 hours a week, and just coming to the Senate meetings every other week. It's not too demanding of a job. It's a great way to get started. Or you could run for an executive position, which is a paid position. So if you need to be paid for the work that you do, that is a great way to start as well. So those are all good ways to get involved, I think.
Mind if I add something to that?
No, go ahead.
So I was also just going to say, also try to find those things that, Bakersfield College offers, their sites, their different accounts, try to integrate them into your daily habits. So specifically, I'm thinking about, if you want to stay in tune with what the BC Library offers, you can follow them on Instagram at BC_library. And there's also a Surviving Bakersfield College on Facebook that you can follow, and contribute to.
No, thank you. I think those are great options. I'm on the Surviving BC Facebook. I like to see what concerns students have, because I think sometimes they don't tell us the concerns they have, but they'll put it on social media. So finding it out there is always a great way to find stuff out. So I want to say we're getting towards the end of our Q&A session. If any of our attendees have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Since I don't see any, I'm going to go ahead and see if our panelists have any final thoughts or comments before we end our conversation. Such a talkative group. Okay, well, I want to thank all of our administrators, faculty, students, staff, everybody who came out to this talk. As I said in the beginning, this was something that WHAM had brainstormed, and we really felt that BC is doing a great job with doing technology and making that shift, like Matt said, to online formats. But I also feel that there's some disconnect in like what the campus can do and what the campus can't do. I thought Dr. Damani did a great job in saying that BC can't just open up. We're also, we have to maintain the guidelines of the state. And I think sometimes students don't understand that. And as much as I love being online, I miss the classroom and I miss engaging with the students as a faculty member. If I had the choice, I would go back into the classroom, but the state's not allowing it, vote, if you don't like the answers. I do want to plug our next talk for WHAM, just to give a little insight, because there were some questions from the students regarding BC giving out vaccines and then when and where they can get vaccines. So rather than addressing it with this panel, I thought it would be better if people that are here attending, we have on Thursday, the 25th, a health panel that's going to take place. And it's called A Dialogue About COVID-19, the Vaccine and Your Health. And it will be on Zoom and it will be on Facebook Live. And it starts at 7 p.m. And we have some really great panelists. We have people from public health, we have people from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So there are going to be some well-known people in the community to talk about the vaccine and how the process is going. So again, I want to encourage those that have questions about the vaccine to come to our next talk. And then again, I want to thank our panelists for coming and giving up their time for this. But I think it was a great discussion, and I appreciate all of your time and your comments. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting and moderating and for having me.